Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. And before we get started on today's main event, I have a public service announcement. For those of you who may not be aware of it, in the wake of the almost universal community condemnation of the building of the cruiser Puerto Rico in the Christmas patch event for World of Warships, Wargaming are offering refunds for anybody who spent gold on the cruiser's construction. You have to raise a customer support ticket, and a lot of people are doing exactly this, so it might take them some time to get around to you. But if you raise that ticket, they will refund any of the gold that you spent. However, there is kind of a catch. If you did spend gold on activating any of those boosters, you will have earned rewards from completing phase 1, 2, 3, and anything up to half of phase 4 of the cruiser's construction. And those rewards will have to be deducted from your account, and the simplest and easiest way for Wargaming to do this is to roll your account back to the state that it was in when the patch went live on your server. Now bear in mind that an account rollback isn't just going to reset your progress on the Puerto Rico, it's going to reset everything back to its initial state, including any progress that you've made on any of the New Year directives and any credits and experience that you've earned on any other ships that you've played since you spent the gold on those boosters. Also, the only thing they're refunding is the gold. If you spent money to buy the gold in the first place, you're shit out of luck. Although we'll see how the community reacts to this, and you never know, there may be further compensation coming in the future. I mean, you're effectively having almost a week's worth of game time wiped off your account. Surely that deserves some form of compensation, in addition to just getting the gold back. Watch this space, we shall see, but this is definitely a step in the right direction. Anyway, on with today's main event. This is Charlotte Goes Fishing. I actually had to look up how to pronounce that, which isn't too surprising really. My conversational Aztec isn't quite what it used to be. Charlotte, of course, the Aztec god of fire and lightning, I think. Charlotte is sailing HMS Leander, the premium tier 6 British light cruiser, named after Leander, one of the pair of mythological Greek lovers. Yep, today's video promises a full-on hardcore mythology lesson, except it doesn't, because we're done with all that now. This is probably some of the worst possible matchmaking you could ever have in a tier 6 cruiser. Not quite as bad as it could have been. There could have been 2 tier 8 carriers on each team, but still. You kind of have to feel sorry for Charlotte and the captain of the Nürnberg on the enemy team, because they're the only 2 tier 6 cruisers in this battle. In fact, the whole battle is overwhelmingly tier 8. There are only 4 tier 6s on each team, 2 battleships, 1 cruiser, and a destroyer. There's only 1 tier 7 on each team, a destroyer. Aside from that, everything else is tier 8, including the carriers. Yes, it's a particularly shitty day to be sailing the high seas in tier 6 light cruiser of any description. Charlotte, however, he's feeling kind of confident. I do like the Leander, by the way. It's an okay cruiser. It's not as hilariously bad as the Emerald at tier 5, and it's not as awesome as the Fiji at tier 7. It's alright. It's definitely not a great ship, but, well, it's easy to look good coming after the shockingly bad Emerald at tier 5, and the Leander does have its fans. And like I said, it's fairly decent, except in one regard where it is pretty shockingly bad, and that's the range of its main caliber 6-inch guns. Stock, this tier 6 cruiser only has a range of 12 kilometers, and that only goes up to 13.2 kilometers with the rangefinder upgrade. This ship has the shortest range guns of any tier 6 cruiser, and when you combine that with the worst armor of any tier 6 cruiser, you might have a recipe for disaster. Luckily, as a British light cruiser, the Leander does have a couple of tools to make those inadequacies kind of work. And of course we're talking about the smokescreen. The hydroacoustic search certainly helps, and the fact that the Leander is also armed with torpedoes. So if you can get close enough to something to start shooting at it, you can hide in the smokescreen while remaining, hopefully, safe from torpedoes thanks to your hydroacoustic search. And if anything tries to get too close to your smokescreen, and you can't fight them off with the guns, you can always scare them off with the torpedoes. Just, hope they don't have hydro, and you're not in a tier 8 battle where the enemy team have radar. He's approaching the mouth of the channel here. He's popped his hydro, which is extremely bad news for the enemy Asashio B, a mere 3 kilometers away, hoping to ambush himself some big old fat juicy battleships. Of course, even though he's in a smoke screen, the second he fires his guns at this kind of range, the Asashio is going to see him, which does kind of negate the advantage of popping the smoke in the first place, but he's still actually pretty okay. He pulls back anyway just in case, and then takes a quick look around and pretty quickly comes to the conclusion that even though the Asashio sees him at that range when he fires the guns in smoke, nobody else on the Asashio's team can do anything about it. At least not immediately, but he's still going to be better off killing that Asashio quickly before anybody else does get line of fire on him. The Asashio, possibly suffering from a severe and fatal rush of shit to the brain, goes broadside on in order to dump his torpedoes in the water. Charlotte starts pulling back, even though he doesn't have to, because unlike Charlotte's torpedoes, which can sink anything, the Asashio's torpedoes can only strike battleships and aircraft carriers. So even though Charlotte didn't have to pull back, he could have just sat there in the mouth of the channel and eaten every one of those torpedoes, suffering no damage whatsoever. It was still a fairly nice move. And better to be safe than sorry, just in case Charlotte didn't realise either. Speaking of better safe than sorry, especially since there is now a Cleveland, who is the only radar cruiser on the enemy team and is now well within radar range, Charlotte dumps his torpedoes around the corner of the island ahead, because it's been a while since we saw the Normandy and the Nuremberg, and they were around there, and then sneaks into cover in the channel. This way, even if the Cleveland does pop his radar, nobody's going to be able to shoot at him. And if he continues to edge forward just a little bit and he crosses the boundary marker into the cap circle, he should still be reasonably safe from getting shot at, even if the Cleveland does pop his radar and he's able to grab himself some capture points into the process. The enemy team are ahead on points. They have 2 kills to Charlotte's team's 1, and they've got 2 capture circles completely under their control, so flipping Delta here is definitely going to be very useful for the team. And there's the capture assist, so both teams now have 2 of the capture circles, and pretty much right on schedule. There's the Normandy, and he can see you, and he's not looking very happy. Charlotte swings the ship's arse around to present the narrowest possible target to the Normandy, and gets away with it. That hit seemed to strike the quarterdeck, and then ricochet up into the superstructure. That could very easily have been a citadel. Battleships are the bane of the Leander's existence. If that Normandy shell had struck the stern of the ship dead on rather than the upper deck at the rear of the ship where it ricocheted, it would have smashed right through and very probably citadeled him. In fact, Charlotte is extremely lucky that it was the Normandy shooting at him, because any of the other battleships in this game would have had the 358mm guns that would have been required to overmatch his deck armour, and even that ricochet would have gone through and citadeled him. But, well, it was the Normandy, and the Normandy does only have 340mm guns, so he did get away with it. Right now, Charlotte is asking the Chapayev there if he'd like to accompany him on a Normandy hunting expedition around the other side of the island there. The Chapayev seems to be up for it, and it seems pretty clear by now that Charlotte just is not afraid of the Normandy. He pauses to make sure the Chapayev is with him, and make sure that he's not the first target that the Normandy sees when he comes around the corner. A little bit cheeky, but hey. What's the point in having teammates if you're not going to use them? But then again, the plan that he did discuss with the Chapayev was to torpedo the Normandy, and the Chapayev's torpedoes are trash. They only have a 4-kilometre range. The Leanders, if you've got the upgraded torpedoes, 8 kilometres, so he doesn't have to get as close as the Chapayev does. The fact that the Chapayev also happens to be taking all of the fire for him it's really just a bonus prize, really. Unfortunately for the Chapayev, while it was a good plan, at least from Charlotte's perspective, his first set of torpedoes are going to kind of miss a little bit. The Normandy wasn't coming around the corner at full speed, and now he's accelerating, which threw off Charlotte's aim. The Chapayev is only just now getting into torpedo launch range. He's managing to turn away just before the Normandy could clear the island and bring the guns to bear, so he doesn't actually take too much damage at all from that salvo. The Saipan starts to get stuck in as well, and it's at this point where Charlotte realises that the Normandy didn't come around the back of that island alone. He just came way too far ahead of anybody else who was capable of supporting him. That Cleveland is going to be an issue. The Nuremberg that came around there with them, not so much. If you look at his position on the minimap, he's about to duck down into the channel where Charlotte torpedoed and killed the Asashio B earlier, except I don't know if he realises there's a Bismarck waiting there for him. So good luck with that. Second set of torpedoes away. That should take care of the Normandy, who is still shooting at the Chapayev, and only his secondaries are engaging Charlotte. The Cleveland, however, is going to be a much bigger problem. At this precise instant, the Cleveland kind of has problems of his own. He's trying to get away from the Bismarck, who's just sunk the Nürnberg with his secondaries right at about the time that, yep, the torpedoes land, and the Normandy goes down to Davy Jones's locker. However, if the Cleveland's firing armour-piercing, and he is, and he's just used his radar, I don't think the radar's going to help you here, sunshine. But since he is firing armour-piercing and not high explosive, you can angle against 6-inch armour-piercing. And because Charlotte's in a British light cruiser and doesn't have anything other than armour-piercing ammunition, he gets improved armour-piercing penetration angles. Although I have to admit, in the final 2 salvos that the Cleveland fired at him, Charlotte really wasn't given nearly enough angling and was very lucky to not get citadeled. But at the end of the day, the Cleveland's down and he isn't. That's his 3rd kill, 2 of them tier 8s. Charlotte's companion in arms against the Normandy there, the Chapayev, his health bar isn't looking very happy, is it? Although, to be fair, Charlotte did have other issues at the time, but the whole idea of ganging up on the Normandy was his idea, so he did offer an apology to the Chapayev in chat for not helping him out sooner. I don't know if the Chapayev just didn't see the apology in chat, or if he's just thinking, I'm not talking to you anymore. Or he's just too busy trying to avoid getting shot at, but either way, he didn't reply. Anyway, thanks to the slaughter of the Asaccio, Nürnberg, Normandy and Cleveland, the team are now ahead on kills, but, well, that's the only place they're ahead because they're still behind on points and the enemy team now have 3 of the 4 capture circles. Now, I think this enemy Farragut had definitely taken one too many brave pills, quite happy to chase the Chapayev, who wasn't shooting back at him because he wanted to go undetected, thinking twice about his hasty life choices now that he's run into a Leander. He pops his smoke, but he's obviously going too fast to stay undetected, and he did just fire his guns. Charlotte, chasing a destroyer into a smokescreen, has obviously popped his hydro. There are the Farragut's torpedoes, and yep, we're good. The Farragut has now slowed down enough to go undetected, but he was chasing a Chapayev. A Chapayev is a radar cruiser. And he'd slowed down to go undetected, which means he's now a sitting duck. And that is Charlotte's 4th kill. Still not enough to put the team ahead on points, though. I'm actually kind of surprised that Charlotte didn't pull a hard left turn and get into the Farragut smokescreen, because American smokescreens are great, they last forever. But he doesn't take advantage of the Farragut smokescreen, instead just continuing on the same course and shooting at that cluster of enemy ships, all bunched up together in the middle of the map. Then again, none of them are actually targeting him, so why not? He's got his own smokescreen. If he needs to use it, it's available. And since nobody is actually shooting at him, may as well continue to close the distance. That way, when you do have to use the smokescreen, because somebody is targeting you, you've got more time to shoot at them from within the smokescreen until they pull out of firing range. And he is in fact slowing down, and I think, yep, there it is. He's just popped his own smoke. I think he could have easily moved forward another kilometre or 2 just to maximise the amount of fire he can get on targets before they get out of there. Or at the very least, waited until somebody did actually target him. But, well, he did what he did. And he is scoring some hits on the Amalfi. Yes, he's bullying another tier 8. He's just got no respect for his elders, does he? I mean... But yeah, this is kind of what I was afraid of. Everybody is either out of range or about to be out of range. So he's not really getting an awful lot of value out of that smokescreen. And he's going to have to power up the turbines and get after them. He probably should have moved forward at least another 3, maybe even 5 kilometres before he started shooting at those guys. As it is now, well, he's got to abandon the smokescreen when there's still almost a minute left. So, yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. But it is what it is. At least he hasn't taken any further damage. And if you'd waited until you'd been targeted, well, you are in a light cruiser. Those are battleships down there, with the exception of the Amalfi. Battleships that are all armed at least with 15-inch guns, and any one hit could have been fatal. So, yeah, you could argue that he didn't push it any more than he really needed to, I suppose. Enemy team still ahead on points, way ahead on points, still hold 3 of the caps and have actually started to pull back some of the kills too. I have a few questions about the Hatsuharu up ahead though. Tier 6 destroyer. Easily the stealthiest ship remaining in this game. There's no air threat. So he's not going to be detected from the air if he pushes into the cap circle up ahead, and somebody on the team desperately needs to get into that cap circle because they are 200 points behind. Somebody is now just flipping one of the caps, but the Hatsuharu is actually slowing down and waiting for the Leander to go ahead of him. Do you really need a Leander to go and spot targets for you when you're in a Hatsuharu? I'll save you the trouble of thinking about that one. No, you don't. The Hatsuharu's bizarre behaviour continues. Now he's popped his engine boost. Why has he popped his engine boost? If you're suddenly in a rush to get into the cap circle up ahead of you, just go to full speed instead of idling along at half throttle. But Jingles, how do you know all he wants to do is to get into the cap circle? Well, watch. Right, he's just popped his torpedoes and now he's slowing down with full engine boost running, stopping and popping his smoke generator, even though he's not spotted. Well, congratulations, you just wasted an engine boost and you've told all of those enemy ships that there are torpedoes coming. That's a complete waste of 2 consumables. Well, it's not a complete waste because, of course, Charlotte has run out of smokescreen charges, so, you know, there's that. I'm sure Charlotte isn't complaining at the bizarre behaviour of the Hatsuharu. Did allow him to get a couple of shots off while capping, without running the risk of having the cap reset. Which is good because the team now control 3 of the 4 caps. The enemy team now only hold 1. Still ahead on points. Still pulling the kills back. Now what's the Hatsuharu doing? His engine boost is still active. He's still creeping along at a quarter throttle. I have so many questions. Gee, if only there was a fast and stealthy destroyer who could slip into that enemy-held cap circle 4 kilometers away from the Hatsuharu, but no. Thinking is far too hard. The Hatsuharu is going to continue to chase after the battleships, waiting for his torpedoes to come off cooldown. Luckily, the Benson on the team is capable of thinking and breathing at the same time. He's got 1 cap under his belt, and he's going for an... ooh, shit, that hurt. Yeah, that hurt a lot. That Tirpitz does seem very upset. You see, that's the difference between getting shot at by a Normandy with 340mm guns and getting shot at by a Tirpitz with 380mm guns. Even though Charlotte really kind of asked for that because he wasn't angled at all. If you are angled, you can bounce 340mm shells. You can't bounce 380mm shells. They're going to overmatch. But while Charlotte unarguably screwed up there, the Tirpitz has made an even bigger miscalculation. He's so desperate to get in and finish him off with his torpedoes. Well, what works for the goose works for the gander. Jesus. I'm pretty sure that Charlotte knows he's not going to survive the encounter with the Bayern, not with less than 1,000 health remaining. Oh look, Hatsuharu torpedoes. Let's see if our little Japanese engine boosting, smoke screening friend was wise to stick around and wait for his torpedoes to reload. Spoiler, he wasn't. Every single one of those torpedoes missed. But guess what? Yes, you'll be shocked to learn that Charlotte's didn't, and so that's kill number 6. We even missed the Kraken, as well as a high caliber Confederate and flesh wound award. The enemy team only have 2 ships left alive. Charlotte's team outnumber them 5-2. They have 3 of the caps under their control. They now have points coming in at a much, much greater rate than the enemy team. They're going to have to work spectacularly hard, even by that Hatsuharu standards, to screw this one up.
A few minutes later.
Greetings, sports fans. You join us with just a few seconds of the match to go as the Hatsuharu fires his torpedoes around the wrong side of an island, missing the Amagi by at least a kilometre. But even that wasn't enough to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. The team did in fact win, and it will probably come as a great surprise to none of you that Zolot was head and shoulders in experience earned above everybody else on his team. So, jolly good show, old boy. Toodle pip, cheerio, all that good stuff. Because that's it for today. Congratulations on a well-fought victory, and everyone else, I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.